wndrsoul.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of Wonder Soul. I am here joined with a fantastic guest. This is the first time since I've really rebooted the show and had someone that I haven't talked to before. This interaction is going to be one of a kind because this gentleman is a host of his own podcast with a group of friends. That podcast being the Movie Planet Podcast. And I had been listening to this podcast, I want to say, for a handful of years now. And I just randomly reached out to him on Instagram. And I was like, hey, maybe we can record. I don't know. I'm just kind of getting back into the swing of things. But, been a listener. Think it would be really fun to sit down and talk. So here I am with Joe of Movie Planet Podcast. Welcome, Joe. Thank you for being on the show, man.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, man. Like I was just telling you before we hit record. It's just kind of a unique experience, man. When you've listened to someone's podcast for hours and hours, hearing their voice, and then to actually talk to them and hear them respond back, it's kind of a weird experience a little bit, but yeah,
absolutely.
So this is a little surreal, but it's really cool, man. I appreciate you being on. Obviously, like I said, I've been a listener for a couple years, man. I think I got into the podcast must have been either Lord of the Rings or Star Wars. And once I started to see what you guys were doing over there, I was like, okay. So I started going through the library. I started going through the catalog. And so I guess, like, to start things off, man, if you want to introduce yourself and then tell everyone listening, about the podcast and how it got started and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I'm Joe. I am the host of the Movie Planet Podcast. We started this podcast April 16th of 2016 as the Movie Playground at the time. Were you familiar with that?
I don't think so. Think so.
So the Movie Playground was what we started as, and it came as just a funny little idea to do something. Me and my buddy JC, we worked at the same school, and I had just moved here from Florida, and I met him, and we would sit there and geek out about Star Wars. And at the time, Star Wars had just gotten bought by Disney, so we had plenty of stuff to talk about. And we were all excited about Star Wars, and boy, oh boy. But we started it. We decided, let's just do one show. We have like our 3 or 4 friends that would listen, and it was the Jurassic Park show. It was 45 minutes long, and we didn't know what we were doing. I'm a super preparer, so I have like this template that I've created. We were going to do the movie news, and we were going to do a movie also. We did it all in one in about 45 minutes. And we did a few of these shows. We jumped into like the Die Hard franchise, and it wasn't long before another teacher at that school who we didn't normally talk to was kind of like, hey, I've been listening to the show. It's really good. And he had a very distinct voice. And I was like, well, Joel, do you want to do a show with us? And he goes, yeah, that'd be great. Really? Sure. And then like 3 years later, he's like this fixer on the show. He's the middle part between me and JC, because we are at each other all the time.
Oh yeah.
But that was when we were the Movie Playground, and we did the Lord of the Rings shows at that time, and we did the Star Wars shows all the way up until I believe I think we just did 1 through 6 at the time. I don't think we had done Force Awakens yet, and it became one of those things where, as everybody grows up and we all start to mature, JC had a kid. He had to take a few months off. And in doing so, Joel picked up the slack. And then another one of our teacher friends decided, he was kind of like, hey, do you like to do scary movies? And I was like, yeah, we could do that. So Sam and I decided to start another podcast called Terror Talk, where we did scary movies. And before you know it, we inadvertently created a network of shows.
Wow.
We had the Ultimate Movie News show, game show, which was me and JC and Joel talking about the movie news only. And we created rules and games. Like if we brought up a topic that somebody else didn't want to talk or didn't want to hear the other person's opinion on, we had a veto card they could throw at them, and they
Oh,
had to be
that's
quiet.
cool. That's cool.
And it became hysterical. I mean, Joel would do, we would do Kiss, Marry, Kill with certain topics.
Oh, wow.
We would recast movies today uh, that were made like 20 years ago with people today.
That would be oh my gosh, that's a good idea, man.
It was a ball. And then we did the movie Pantheon show, which is our key show.
Right.
And so I would have 3 shows that I was editing every single week. And
Golly.
I had a ball. It was great. And then things start to slow down. And it's like, okay, well, people are getting pulled in different directions. JC has a kid. Joel is, getting married, and he's going to have a kid. And before you know, it's like, okay, I got to bring other people in. And that's when I decided to rebrand the show. And I was going to start fresh, knowing that we had learned so much in those 2.5 years that we did it. And so I changed it to the Movie Planet. I created a new logo and took all the old shows, remastered them for what we were doing now with what I understood about sound all of a sudden. And now the Movie Planet has been going since 2018. And it's fantastic. We got like 9 hosts for the show now, and we just kind of cycle through them.
Man, I see. Maybe I never knew about that. I didn't know anything before Movie Planet. And
oh yeah,
there's
times on the show we'll mention the Movie Playground. In fact, I'm releasing a show called we're doing Days of Thunder. Okay. And that's coming out in about a month and a half. And on that show, I accidentally start the show with "Welcome to the Movie Playground," and I didn't even notice it until I was editing the show. And I'm like, "Wow, I haven't said that in 5 years."
Oh, did you leave it in, or did you have to?
I left it in. I was like, nice. Yeah, it's a goof.
That's so cool, man. It also
we're not professionals over here. We don't know what we're doing.
I know, man. Like, just leave it in, whatever.
Right.
I mean, editing, man, that's a lot of work, man. And just when you're talking about all these different kinds of shows and having to, dance around and edit with those week to week, man, that's a lot, dude. I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening at some point have had to edit a video or picture. Editing anything can take time, and if you're a perfectionist, it can take even more time. So man, but that's so are you saying like what Movie Planet is now is like an amalgamation of all of the other shows, and just kind of like did you just take everything and put it into one show, or is there still other things that you're thinking about maybe down the road would deserve its own podcast, or how did that go into the rebranding with Movie Planet?
It was actually I decided I'm gonna cut out the news part,
okay,
because we had become so dissatisfied with what had happened with Disney.
Right.
The Marvel franchise was about to end with the Infinity Saga. I mean, it was 2018, so we had one more year before Endgame.
Okay.
And so that was kind of like, okay, that's the end of what we've been talking about for 2 straight years. And, Disney had kind of, flubbed Star Wars a couple times.
Yeah.
And we had actually had separate areas of the news where we were talking about all the Disney news, all the Star Wars news, all the Marvel news, all the DC news. And listening to the older shows, it's so funny how excited we were about DC. We were so psyched. And like, I listened to one of the older shows actually today, just to kind of remind myself as to what I was like back then. And we're sitting there going, oh, we can't wait for Aquaman. Jason Momoa is going to be amazing. And Batman v Superman, it's going to be great. And Suicide Squad, whoa, yeah. And then it's like, as soon as you see the movie, the next show is just us going, well, that happened.
Wow. Oh, what a punch to the gut, man. I know, dude. Yeah. But you can't help it, man, in the moment.
Absolutely.
But that's what's kind of cool about podcasting, in my opinion, is this time capsule of your actual like thoughts and emotions in that moment. Because like you said, it was exciting. The idea of these things happening was awesome. And when you were seeing what success was coming from Marvel at the time, you're thinking, okay, well, yeah, DC, just copy that. If anything, just copy that and do it. And they kind of did that in a bad way, obviously. But it's just, I mean, yeah, go ahead.
There were 3 podcasts that really lent itself to how we did everything.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was Fat Guys at the Movies. Have you heard of this?
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Fat Guys at the Movies is quick reviews of certain movies that are just coming out.
Okay.
And then there was the Now Playing podcast, which has been going for like 15 years. They're kind of the gold standard of podcasts when it comes to movies. Uh, and they basically do the long form movie review of any movie or franchise that they can come think of.
Okay.
And then there was the Collider podcast, which was a long time ago. And that was a strictly news podcast. And I remember listening to all these all the time. And I was like, I could do this. This is not difficult. It's just people giving their opinions. The only difference is I don't have a film degree.
Right.
And so I remember sitting with JC originally, and he goes, people won't take us seriously. And I go, well, maybe that's a good thing, because people hear enough seriously. They need to hear the casual critic. The person that's going to say, you know what, Weekend at Bernie's is a damn fine movie. I don't care what you say.
There you go. I mean, I think you have a really good point, though, man. I think that's what draws people to podcasts and a lot of content now for opinions and things, even news and the opinion of that. Because when you look at it, everything else is so repetitive, so generic, robotic almost. Like when you're looking at reviews for movies or video games, it just kind of can feel like, okay, the same thing over and over again. But when you hear it from somebody that you feel like you were in the movie theater watching the movie with, or somebody that you would just run into, just a normal everyday person, right? Or someone, which I've always had a preference for. I want to hear the thoughts of a Lord of the Rings fan talk about the Lord of the Rings movies.
And all the appendices,
right
with it.
Right. That is the opinion I'm looking for, and
AC right there.
I mean, so there you go. And that's why I always found those episodes, and really all of them, just fun, because you guys make sure to bring out some facts, and it's educational in its own way. It's entertaining, and you guys are always just geeking out over it. That's what I've really found really cool about not only your podcast, but just like you said, trying to find creators that are just everyday people, man, doing other things, but have a passion for what they want to talk about, to the point where they're like, yo, dude, I could do that. Let's have fun. And it's just get together as friends and, bullshit and talk about movies or talk about whatever, and, there's obviously a passion for films when it comes to, have you always just liked movies? I know this sounds like a generic question, but I mean, from a kid, you just love movies, and here we are, or is there any? Tell me that.
My first real recollection of movies was never actually in movie form. It was my parents. I was a very mature young lad, and so I was able to take a lot of topics and understand what was going on for the most part.
Right.
But I was also an avid reader, and my mother tells stories all the time about how when I was younger, I would climb the bookcase at home to grab the Lord of the Rings book.
Whoa.
Because it had a map in it. And I would always unfold the map and kind of try to follow along in the first, wherever I was in the book as to where we are in the map. Where is that?
Oh, okay.
And then it was a matter of also beyond that piece is, having my imagination be a big chunk of it. My parents used to buy me those books on tape. I don't know if you're familiar with these at all, but they were based on movies. They take a hit movie at the time and make it into an 18-page book that had very simple language in it and clip photos from the movie and summaries of what's happening. And I have in front of me here the Empire Strikes Back one that my mom got me. And I had the Dark Crystal, and I had Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And I had these, and as it would read it back to you, they would have fake people doing the voices because they couldn't afford the actual people doing the voices. And I got to the point where I'd watched these and read these so many times, I would start to read along with, and then start to mimic the voices. And then I'd walk around the house telling the entire story of Empire Strikes Back with Yoda and doing all the voices here and there. And my parents took me to go see The Return of the Jedi when I was 4 years old, for a birthday present. And I had seen Empire and Star Wars at the time. And that is the first movie memory I remember, was seeing Return of the Jedi. And it was it kind of set the stage for what I want to see in a theater at that point. And so for me, every time I got to go to the theater, I was like, well, I'm going to get some Jedi level movie. Here we go.
Yeah.
And my mom was very, very like, okay, well, this one's not good for you. It's not going to be Jedi level. We're not there.
It doesn't hit that bar. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't have a VCR growing up. So we had to wait for stuff to show up on TV. And I remember when we finally did get a VCR, the number of video cassettes we had with movies I would tape off of TV just so I could rewatch them over and over again. We had a separate cabinet after about
really. Oh my god!
I'd just be like, find the other tape I want to put in the movie. Yeah, it was one of those where I just needed to consume as much as possible, and I love storytelling. I certainly favor certain directors over others and certain storytellers over others. Mm-hmm. Josh and I talked about our love for Zack Snyder, which is a contentious topic, but you know what? Dude makes a really pretty movie.
He does. You can't argue that, man.
Can't deny it.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where because of all that, that's what I got to bring to the table. And when I met like JC, who was just as nerdy as I was about this stuff, I was like, okay, kindred spirit, here we go. Steve, who did the entire Marvel universe with us, I met Steve really 3 months before I left Florida.
Wow.
And we have been like, we call each other nearly every other day. And sometimes I'll just throw the phone on my Roadcaster and be like, I'm recording this. Let's go.
Wow. That's
yeah,
crazy.
The funny thing was this is supposed to be basically just a bunch of casual people enjoying movies. And when I met Josh is one of our more soft-spoken hosts. Josh actually makes films.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, I'm going to bring in the film guy also to kind of balance out all of our opinions. And then he told us he gave Alien 3 100, and we were like, okay, he's just like us. Never mind. Never mind. He's as much of a dork as the rest of us. Okay, got it. There's no eliteness here.
Oh no, man. Dude, see, that's what I've been liking about the podcast, man, is the variety of personalities, what everybody brings to the table. Like you said, like, you know, some people have just been along for certain franchises and certain shows. And that chemistry and rhythm and the way you guys call back on like, hey, well, what did you think about Winter Soldier? You know, just kind of building up, man. Like that's what's been so fun is that consistency and dedication to a lot of those like franchises. Because I think I've listened to most of the Marvel ones, at least the ones that I like. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I think we all have a tier list of those films. And that's another thing that I don't think you brought up yet, man, is that you, like you said, man, you prepare a lot, but you guys are hella organized. And and every time I hear you talk about these movies, I just picture you in front of like an Excel sheet and just
I'm looking at it right now.
No. Okay. Well, that's cool. That works out. I'm like, dude, this guy's got it plotted out. I was like trying to describe what I was talking to somebody about. Yeah, I'm having Joe from this podcast. And I was talking about your podcast. And I said, I feel like if somebody were to ask me like, hey, I've never seen a movie in my life. Right. Which one should I watch? I'd be like, you probably need to listen to this podcast because this podcast has a list. And on that list, I think the goal of that podcast is to leave humanity the list of movies that are worth their time, which ones are good. Exactly. And, it's just, just having fun with it. But yeah, like I really respect that too, because it's always fun to, if you listen to enough episodes, you track the journey, of every genre. Oh. You're like, oh, this one, they're talking about a horror movie. And then it's like one of these got to get knocked off. And it's like, oh man,
yep,
this is interesting. So yeah, I love that, man. I got to applaud you or your editing. As much as we were talking about it, I find it fun and impressive, dude. I think you put in time.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, the beats, the intros, the sound bites, the sound clips, everything. So using clips from the movies and stuff. I love that. Like that captured my attention too. Like. So a presentation of that podcast is really good, man. I don't know, man. Like some people, I don't know how you are about feedback. I mean, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm good with anything. We don't know what we're doing. Tell us what we can do better. We're all good.
Well, it's kind of fun to like, I don't know, like it's one thing to type a review. It's another thing to just talk to somebody and go, look, man, what you're doing is a good thing, man. It's a good
Appreciate
product.
it.
Yeah. So keep it up, man. And I just wanted to, a little sidebar there, as we were going on through this episode, but, yeah, man, I understand what you're talking about. Movies have been hugely impactful in my life, dude. I mean, like
Really?
some of the, well, see, some of my first movie theater experiences that were like really big were probably like Phantom Menace and Harry
Yeah.
Potter and Lord of the Rings. And I remember I was probably 11 when I saw Fellowship of the Ring, and I did not
Okay.
know it was look, excuse my ignorance, okay? I had
No,
not
go
read
there.
I have
Go there.
not I had not read the books. I don't think I knew. Maybe I did know that they were made or adapted from, some series. But I remember watching the ending of Fellowship of the Ring and just going, "Oh, that's it. We're done. There's not
What a
any more.
ripoff.
What is this?" So
Oscar my ass.
everybody broke up. This whole movie is in shambles. The Fellowship,
Right.
what's happening? So impactful moments like that, man. Yeah, look, dude, there is a topic I want to get into with
Oh,
you
sure.
that kind of transitions from all of this, but talking about going to the movie theater, man, how has it been for you the last couple years going? How you been feeling about what you're seeing out there overall? Because there's a lot of topics right now going on about over bloated budgets, and now you have
Oh,
the
yeah.
strikes going on, and these movies that are sadly, I think we were talking about DC before we were recording, or maybe even during this episode. It's all blurring together now at this point, but just saying that, a lot of DC films flopped, and James, there's a lot of things going on in Hollywood, man. I think we both were lucky enough to see some really cool movies in the theater and have that genuine experience that I think is fun. But I think even after the pandemic, everybody's kind of like invested in their homes, and now everybody's got like a home theater set up, and you might as well just watch it. Wait, hey, save yourself some money, just watch it on demand, 30 days from now. Like, so
Well, I mean, if you've got a family, absolutely, it's only going to cost you like $16. Where if you go to the theater, it's going to cost you upwards of $40 to go with your family.
that's insane, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been pretty pricey to go to a movie. Not well. I mean, I catch a lot of matinees, and then obviously, if you're that individual, you bring in a little bit of candy or something, you do that, or if you just want to get for you. But now it's over $20 to go if you just want to get the full experience, man.
Yeah, I've got one of those Regal Unlimited passes, so
how
I
is
pay
that?
for that. That's $20 a month, and I can see as many movies as I want
No
throughout the entire.
way.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And so for me, this quarter of school has been rough because my partner hasn't been there. She's on maternity leave. So I've had to double up my workload. And because of that, I have not gotten to see really any movies until this past week. And so that killed me because I was like, oh, I usually go see a movie every weekend or maybe even two.
Yeah, you're on top of it.
Yeah, so when we had this break, I was like, well, I'm going to go see whatever I can. I saw Dumb Money, and I saw Exorcist Believer, and I remember walking out of Dumb Money going, this is great. How come no one's talking about this movie? And I saw Exorcist Believer, and I was like, why is everyone talking about this movie?
Oh, come on, man. You know how it goes, man. No franchise, soft reboot around Halloween time. No matter how good or bad it was, people were going to go see it, and
right.
Yeah, they're like, hey, we'll just do double what the first Exorcist did, kind of. We'll have two possessed little girls, and we'll take all the religions, and they'll all join up like the Avengers.
We're only focused on one of the girls, though.
Yeah, for some reason.
Everyone forget her.
Well, dude, I've been on this thing where I've been wanting to watch at least 31 horror movies in the month of October, whether they were good, bad, short, old, new, whatever. And I actually watched The Exorcist 3 for the first time in my life.
Oh, really?
And that was really good.
That's an experience.
That is an experience, but man, when you're talking about this new Exorcist movie and some of the other ones that, the possessed trope. Anyways, yeah, dude, I get that. Being busy, not being able to go to the theater. I also get like, hey man, it's pretty pricey. And now with streaming services,
Yeah.
I mean, we've also seen a lot of movies that have just gone to Netflix, gone to Disney Plus. But at the same time, like the experience itself, like I remember we went through a 3D renaissance there for a minute where every movie had to be 3D. And
Yeah.
it just, do you like IMAX and stuff? Do you
You
remember
know what? I do. I
Yeah.
like them for the movies that they're meant for. Where like for instance, obviously the most recent one, Avatar: Way of Water.
Yeah.
This, but Josh on the show had a very good point, which is it still a movie or is it an art installation at that point? Because if the only place you can see it it's meant to be seen is an IMAX 3D theater, and you only have one of those maybe in a big city, then what's the point? Is it just
Mm,
an art installation then? Like, and you have to go visit it?
that's a good
Because
point.
and he goes, if you can't enjoy a movie at home as much as you enjoyed it in the theater, then is it really a movie anymore? Or is it just a piece of art you should have seen on the wall?
That is a completely fair argument, man.
I couldn't disagree with him. I was like,
I
it's a
can't
good point.
either. I mean,
And I
that's
said, but
true.
however, when I'm in that theater, guess what I'm watching? He goes, what? I go, a movie. And he goes,
Yeah.
oh, shut
Okay.
up.
Give me a break. You know what I mean? No,
Exactly.
yeah, there's a local theater that's an older theater, and they show a lot of independent films. And during the month of October, they usually show they do this thing called Terror Tuesdays, and so
Yes.
they'll show some classics. Last year, me and my girlfriend we went and saw The Shining, and
Mhm.
for me and her didn't get a chance to see it in the theater, so this was really cool. It was like a cool experience. Like I really appreciate the theater going experience,
I do
but
too.
at the same time where it is today, and like you said, when we get to this point where it's like there's this weird separation in Hollywood where it's like some people are like really okay with like on demand, straight to
Mhm.
demand like movies, and hey, watch it on your phone, your tablet, on the IMAX, on your TV, whatever, we don't care. And then
Right.
you got this other philosophy of just like you said, it's got to be enjoyed this way. This is how I
Mhm.
envisioned it. I mean, I don't know, like I respect both. I think it's not fair to pick one or the other, but the landscape of seeing these movies and really enjoying content has just drastically changed from when we were growing up, man. And I don't know if Hollywood as an industry or like just films and even television, I don't know if they know really what the next 5 years really looks like right now.
Well,
It's
I think there's a natural course correction that's happening right now, and that is we're starting to see movies that are not superhero movies, uh, getting the same commercialization as what the superhero movie used to do.
mm,
You're looking at the budgets of these movies, the Marvel and the DC movies, and they're still bloated as can be. And Marvel never really tells you what their actual budgets are.
right,
Uh, they're usually going to be around 50 to 60 million dollars more, and they just don't want to say anything because if it flops, it looks ridiculous.
right,
Uh, but then you have movies like Barbenheimer,
yeah.
Barbie and Oppenheimer, not superhero movies, but blew the lid off the box office, and nobody really saw that coming. I thought Barbie might make about $700 million, and I was like, and then it'll fade away. And then Oppenheimer, it's a Nolan movie, it'll make about 350. Everybody will say it's the greatest movie ever, and then Transformers will come around, make up like $2 billion, and be like, oh, that's the greatest movie. Um, but I think there's a natural course correction happening, and I think the most noticeable place to see it is through what Marvel and Disney are doing right now, which is stopping the cart and halting and ending everything. There's no more TV shows for a little bit. We're gonna cut this piece out. They filmed 8 episodes of Daredevil and decided, yeah, this is not good enough. We're not
I
doing this.
saw
And
that.
I know. And I'm looking at this going, you know what? This is what's happening is that you're starting to see movies like these that used to be billion-dollar properties. Uh, and they're going back to the drawing board because they know they've lost a lot of their audience. And then you look at movies like Killers, the Flower Moon movie coming out
Yeah,
this weekend.
with
Yeah, like
DiCaprio. Yeah.
yeah, I'm seeing that tomorrow night, and
Ooh.
I know it's a Scorsese movie. It's going to be great, and that's going to make a big chunk of money that Marvel and DC used to make.
Right.
And you know, you were right. We really did grow up in a beautiful time for movie. You know, we got the Harry Potter saga out of it. And we thought we'll never see anything like this again. And then Marvel said, "Hold my beer."
Hold my beer.
And you know, gave us arguably something that will never be done ever again, which is 23 movies all connected, and you could rewatch any of them and really have a good time.
Right.
I mean, even the worst Marvel movie between 2008 to 2019 is still better than most superhero movies.
Yeah. That's
But
that's a good point.
yeah, that time is ending, and people kind of gotten wise of it, which is that as soon as the pandemic hit, Marvel said, "Well, let's roll out all of our TV shows," and no one wanted the TV shows. You know, they
Yeah.
came because we were desperate for content. You know, it was WandaVision. No, actually, before WandaVision, we were all excited about Tiger King. Remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Tiger King, and that was February, and then March it was WandaVision. This is great. It's Marvel again. I told Steve I've recently been rewatching Phase 4. WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier are not nearly as good as we remember.
Yeah.
They just aren't.
It's in the moment, man. And
That's exactly it.
yeah. What they release those week to week, right?
Those were week to week. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know everybody.
Echo was supposed to come out, and they decided, let's just release it all at once. And my first thought was, okay, this movie must be really bad because they don't want to see the streaming numbers go down every week. And then they trashed it all together. And I was like, wow, this is almost Batgirl-esque.
It is, man, and it's so apparent, and you know, all this information is starting to get out there. So I'm just like, man, y'all know that we're gonna find out. Which method do you like the most? Because I know that that's still a strategy that I think these companies are trying to figure out. I think, like, for instance, I think it was Gen V, that The Boys spinoff on Amazon Prime.
Oh, yes.
I think they released like a couple episodes at a time, and then they're like, okay, after this, we gave you enough to get, you know, hooked, and then we're gonna week to week you. Do you like that? Do you like all at once, or would you rather it just be old fashioned week to week? Because my parents, man, and even I am used to just like, hey, Sunday night, The Sopranos is coming on. Hey, this show comes on. So, you know, you always set aside some time, and almost like a week was enough for you to digest it and talk about it at work or whatever. So what's your favorite method of digesting content nowadays?
Well, if it's looking to be about 10, 12 episodes, then for me, this was meant to be seen week to week.
Yeah.
You know, that's typically a season of TV shows post 2006. Because Lost was really the last big show that was 22 episodes a season.
Right.
And so for me, if it's 10 episodes or more, that's a week to week for me. But if we're looking at 6 episodes, I will save it all the way and just watch it all at once, because that tells me that they had a script, probably a movie script, that they knew was going to run really long.
Right.
So they're going to add a little bit of filler to make it into something that's easily digestible. And in doing so, it's a lot easier to see those movies all at once and watch it as one continuous story. Loki, for instance, Loki was, I think, 6 or 7 episodes. No, Loki was 8 episodes. Loki was 8 episodes, and I watched all that at once, and it made so much more sense than WandaVision did.
Really?
Yeah, because WandaVision, when you watch it all at once, it almost feels like you're on a bungee cord, you know, where it ends and you're like, okay, well, what's happening now? I don't know. I could have had a week to talk about what happened in the Mary Tyler Moore version. Excuse me. And but for me, like Loki, that was nice, because if you watch it all at once, you realize this was probably supposed to be a movie originally. Introducing, and that's the other thing is you're introducing your big bad in a TV show. Come on, what are we doing? This was amateur hour. Thanos wouldn't have shown up in WandaVision.
I'm saying, man, it is interesting to see the feedback that they've gotten, and obviously that they've seen, and like these companies, for the most part, the only number they see is money. So like there's been a problem with these services keeping and retaining subscribers. People might just like, hey, I'm going to just watch this thing, I'm going to jump off. Even doing Disney Plus is
Ugh.
cheaper than going to the movies, or doing things like that from time to time. Like the people might, I know a handful of people that's what they do. They
Well,
you
yeah, I
know
bet Netflix is raising their prices again.
I saw that, dude, today. I saw that.
You haven't put anything out in a year.
And they're doing it during the strikes and everything. I'm like, oh, that's a bad look, dude. That's
Yes.
a bad look, and y'all know it too, but y'all don't care because you got some of us by the balls. Because
That's
look,
exactly it.
like Netflix, I will argue, will always be to me, no matter how much I hate and love them. Because sometimes I jump off. We actually just got it again, and we're watching the Fall of House of Usher, which is so damn good, dude.
Is it good?
Oh, it's so good. And that's only 8 episodes. That feels like, yeah, like you were to your point about it being like a movie, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like yeah. If you've ever watched The Haunting on Hill House and any of
Love Hill
the
House.
and Mass, what is it, Midnight Mass and
Yep, Midnight Mass is good. I didn't like Bly Manor.
Blind Manor was okay. All
Yeah,
right.
for me, I had just recently seen the Turning, which was the remake of Turning of the Screw, which is what Bly
Oh,
Manor is based off of, and I was kind of like,
oh,
okay, I'm all turned out.
yeah, yeah, right.
And so for me, and I know right now it's kind of funny because we're watching Flanagan create basically his Flaniverse
Yeah, right.
with the same actresses and actors in all these movies. And
Mm-hmm.
I know some people that's kind of like a comfort food kind of thing. Oh, I think it's the American Horror Story idea, the Ryan Murphy verse.
Right.
Use
Yeah.
Evan Peters and everything. People will love it. And so for me, look, I know Carla Gugino's in it, so I'm in.
Right, right. Man, that cast and the stories and the way he depicts ghosts and stuff, like I don't know.
Oh,
So
God.
I love it, man. It's and this we're actually almost we'll probably be done by tomorrow. I think we got like 2 or 3 episodes. We watched one today when we had time.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. Yeah, but that's it. Like you're saying, is it worth like it feels weird because my girlfriend actually told me, she was like, all right, we need to hurry up and finish this show so we can cancel Netflix. I'm like, look, I know, I get it. We just got it back. Then they raised their prices, and then it's like, what am I doing? Because I do YouTube TV for
Yeah.
sports and stuff like that. And then we have Max,
Mhm.
Netflix,
Yeah.
Crunchyroll. It starts to add up, man.
Oh yeah, I had Apple TV, and the Apple TV is only like what, $4.99 a month.
Not bad. No.
And that's not bad, but I was like, you know what? If I'm going to cut something, it's going to be this. As soon as Ted Lasso's over, as soon as it was over,
Right.
canceled,
We
done.
gotta use you. Thank you. All right. Yeah, man. And they had the Peanuts, so that's rough for me
Mhm.
because the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown, and all those start. All the holiday
Oh yeah.
specials. Apple's like, yeah, those are ours. Sorry, PBS. Yeah.
Yeah, we just had Steve and I just had a debate about this, and we're gonna actually be doing it. We recorded a Christmas show where we're gonna redo our top 10 Christmas movies.
Oh,
Yeah, because
nice.
when we did it the first time,
Yeah.
it was me, JC, and Joel, and Charlie Brown Christmas made it to number one. And I remember sitting there going, God,
What?
I hate that movie so
You hate
much.
that movie? Why do you hate? You
There's so
Grinch.
many better Christmas movies.
I mean, there's some good
The
movies
Grinch
out
is a
there.
better Christmas movie.
Oh no, the Grinch is not. I mean,
Um,
they that's up for debate. That's up for debate.
well, we had a debate, and in the end, when we did it this time, I said, okay, here are the rules. It just like with our show, it has to have been in a theater at some point
What?
because
No.
that's how movies are meant to be seen.
Oh, you.
And he goes, so that cuts out Rudolph and all that. I go, absolutely. Because guess what? We like those. Children don't.
Those are like TV specials.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
TV.
like that's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
That's also why we never did the Star Wars holiday special.
Oh, I would love to see that though. I would love
Trust me, Steve asks about this all the time. Can we do it?
do
No.
it. Oh my gosh, you guys got to do it. Do it. That'd be so much
Um,
fun.
Yeah. Or we haven't done the Ewok movies either. Remember those?
Oh man, see, that's where I can't wait for the point where you guys are like, all right, we've hit a lot of the places we wanted to hit. Now we have to get really weird. We got to go and dig in, and you have like this chest that has like a bolt lock on it, and you got to crack it open, and you go, all right, it's time to do the Star Wars Christmas special and stuff. Oh, that's gonna be. Have you thought about doing like bad movie reviews and kind of
Well,
going?
you know, as you've probably heard, if a movie gets F's by all of us, which means it's so bad it's great, it goes into the global killer pantheon.
That's right.
And what's funny is that it was building up nicely until Josh showed up. And then
Uh-oh.
Josh raised grades and lifted some of these Titanics from the ocean. And like I think we had Solo, a Star Wars story in there. And he was oh no, JC raised that one. JC
No.
gave that 100%. And
What?
he goes, "That's the best Star Wars movie ever made."
Oh.
And I said, "You're supposed to be the Star Wars fan.
Oh my
What
gosh.
happened to you?"
Blasphemy.
Yeah,
The
exactly. Who
mouse
hurt
got to him. The
you?
mouse.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now the only movies in there are Waterworld and Steve's favorite movie at one point, Masters of the Universe,
Yo.
which he loved that movie. And I was like, "Do you really want to do this movie for the podcast?" He goes, "Yes." So
Oh
I
man.
remember where I was when I watched this movie. I was on my balcony and I could only find it in clips on YouTube.
No way.
Right. So I'm like, because I'm not going to pay $3.99 for this. I learned that lesson with news. So I'm watching this movie out there, and about halfway through, I noticed that something happened in the plot that I missed. Well, there was 5 minutes that were excised out of it for copyright reasons. So I called him up and I go, "Hey, just out of curiosity, what happens here?" He goes, "Oh, nothing. He just walks across this one area." I go,
Oh.
"Wow. Never mind." And I hung up and he calls me back. He goes, "You're giving this an F, aren't you?" I go, "It's getting there, man."
Oh man, we are oh yeah, you can't tell, huh?
But it's so funny because when we do the bad movies,
Yeah.
those are the ones that we have the most fun with.
No, what's up with that though, man? It's like movies out of everything, it's the thing that I'm like so bad it's good.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a few movies where it's like we'll never watch this again. And so it's going to get a D minus. Like this is so unworthy of a rewatch. But you know, when we did Waterworld, Sam and I did Waterworld, I remember we started the show and I had to stop the show
Uh-oh.
because he was laughing so hard because he was like, "I forgot how bad this was until I watched it yesterday." And I was like, "Do you want it?" I said, "Do you think we'll be able to get to the space whale?"
Oh my gosh. Oh my
And he
gosh.
goes, "Oh no." And I was like, "Oh yes." And we get to that point and it goes off the rails completely. Sam loses it. And I was like, "This is so bad. It's fantastic."
It's
I would
fantastic.
I'd grab beers with my friends. We could sit down and watch this and have a great
That's what
time.
I'm
at how bad it
saying. Like it's
is.
almost more exciting to set your friends up to watch a bad movie versus actually going, yo, this movie's so good. Because no matter what, you're always going to have that one friend that's going to be like, yeah, it was all right. And you're like, what? No, you don't see it. It's so
Yeah.
perfect. But most of the time, everybody can agree, yeah, this is pretty bad. This is
Well,
pretty
like
bad.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. That movie is a bad movie, but
Yeah.
it's so bad. It's great.
It's so good. Yeah, like in its own unique, quirky ways, man. Like that's what I like about it. Is like most of the time you can watch a bad film and go, man, somebody really wanted to do this. Like this was
Right.
somebody's dream and they put in all this effort. Like even if they knew this was like not good, they still believed in it to some extent. And it's you gotta respect it. And as somebody, as an individual who have never made a film, I mean, they always, hey, still gotta respect it, man. Look,
yeah.
you know, you put something together, and that's awesome, man. But at the same time, it's still bad. Okay.
Well, that's exactly it. It's so bad. And it was in the global killer pantheon. Rocky was.
Right.
Rocky Horror Picture
Oh
Show.
man.
And
Wow.
it was kind of like, this is one of those movies you gotta see. It's so bad, you
Yeah.
gotta see this.
It's the experience.
And Josh, we were fine. It was in there enjoying a nice F for the rest of its life. And Josh came in going, "I love this movie. I'm giving it a B." And when he
Oh,
did that, he pulled it out of the global killer.
no.
And now it rests with a D average at the bottom of the music
Oh.
list. And I'm like, dude, you had a legendary pick and you just destroyed it.
You just destroyed it. What have you done? Oh, it's so funny though, man. Like how certain movies can be synonymous with like the experience. Like we're talking about
Yes.
the movie theater going experience, but you know, certain movies contribute to an experience. And one of the things I did want to talk to you about is, you know, when we're talking about movies, like with Halloween coming up, it's October, the time we're recording this, and why do you think horror movies or watching movies during the Halloween season is like, why does that connect? I feel like there's only a couple holidays that you could really say, oh, that we got to watch this movie. Like this is like meant for this. I don't see people watching 4th of July
No.
themed movies or stuff, maybe summer flicks that go, oh, this reminds me of summer. But,
Oh yeah.
but what is it about watching scary movies during Halloween time?
I think it's the cuddle effect,
Yeah.
which is that it's starting to get cooler out. If you got a girlfriend, you got a boyfriend, and you got a blanket, you're going to be close on that couch, and that's a
Yeah,
safe space to be to watch the stuff you don't normally like to watch.
exactly.
And everybody, anybody that's got a girlfriend or got a boyfriend, there's that one movie that they know you'll never watch unless it's right on Halloween
Exactly.
because they
Oh,
feel that's the right time to do it. And
yeah.
and for me, I make out my list of what I want to watch every single day for the month of October.
No, you don't.
Oh, I absolutely do. Yeah, I change it every year because just like everything else we do here, it's constantly evolving. Like this year, The Shining, Rosemary's Baby, and Psycho got excised off the list because it was kind of
What?
like they're great movies, but they just don't scare me anymore.
Wow.
And so I've replaced them with other things that I know if I watch it, if I wake up in the middle of the night, the things I might see on the wall might mess me up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I usually produce a list and I post it on Instagram as to what I'm watching every single day of the month of October. And the one that gets the most pushback is what I watch on Halloween. Because everybody that knows me knows the scariest movie I've ever seen is The Exorcist. And I save that for a Sunday and I watch that during the day with the blinds open because that movie terrorized me as a child. So,
When did
and
how,
as an adult, I can't do this.
when do you remember seeing that movie for the first time though, man?
Oh my God, yes. You've never heard this story then.
I don't think I have.
Okay, so actually this month, the last movie of October that we're doing for our rewatch for Halloween is gonna be The Exorcist show. And the story behind this was it was really my first time babysitting. And
Oh no.
it was my little brother, and my mom had rented 3 movies. I was about 9 or 10 years old, and they were just gonna be in the neighborhood. So it wasn't like I needed a babysitter there, but they knew I was a mature kid. I could handle being gone for 2 hours. You'll be
Right.
fine.
Right.
And they said, here are the directions, Joe. You're going to watch the Care Bear movie with your brother. Then you're going to take him upstairs, read him this book, and then you can watch TV until we come home. Don't touch the other 2 movies.
Mm.
And so I said, okay. So I watched the Care Bear movie. I took my little brother upstairs, read him, Good Night Moon or whatever it was, and then came downstairs and popped in The Exorcist because that was one of the movies.
Gosh, Joe.
And here I am, this little 9-year-old just, shaking in his boots. And as soon as the bed starts shaking in The Exorcist, I realize I'm out of my depth. So I jump off the chair because, the little man under the chair that's going to grab your feet, he'll get you.
Yeah.
So I jump off the chair, I hit the VCR eject button, throw the tape on the ground. It doesn't even go back in the case. I throw it to the ground and I grab the other tape, which I thought was going to be much better for me because the first time I had really seen aliens was Star Wars and E.T. And they're all friendly or they're going to be bounty hunters.
Right.
Well, this was the movie Aliens.
Oh no.
So that was 2.5 hours of terror. And the worst part is I already have a fear of spiders. So for me, I'm sitting there and I've got to go to the bathroom so bad. But the bathroom is in a hallway where the light is out because my father hadn't fixed it that day.
Oh no.
So I can't go down the dark corridor at this point until my parents come home. They come home. I see the garage door open up. They walk into the door and I make this Navy SEAL SWAT team roll off the chair and bolt to the bathroom. And I can hear the following conversation. Kathy, yeah, come down here. Dun, 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 dun. Do you know what your son was watching? Oh my God. And I'm in the bathroom going, if I leave, they're going to kill me. And if I stay in here, I'm going to die of starvation. So I'm screwed either way. I walk out of the bathroom and my mom is on her knees. I could see tears coming down her face going, I'm so sorry. And my mom says, I ran into her arms and like Reagan from The Exorcist said, I'm never sleeping again.
Oh my God.
And I slept in her room for the next 3 days.
Dude.
But here's what was interesting about my parents. The next morning, I wake up and I smell pancakes. And I'm like, ooh, that's my favorite. I come downstairs and my mom has made my pancakes, my favorite pancakes, banana nut pancakes. And she's got bacon there and she's got a little thing of juice and she's gotten me my own little TV tray. I never got a TV tray. My parents got that. I never got to have it. And she goes, are you ready for breakfast? I was like, yeah. And she goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to watch The Exorcist. And I went, are you kidding me?
What?
And she goes, come with me. So we went in the living room. She opened up all the blinds. So the sun was coming in, you know, nothing happens in the dark, but everything happens in the dark, but nothing happens in the light.
Right.
And so, you know, she sat there and she goes, now here's the deal, Joe. When it gets scary, tell me and I'll pause it. And then we'll take a little break. And then I'll explain what happens. And then we'll restart it whenever you're ready. And I said, okay. So I make it all the way to the bed part and I go, it's scary. And she goes, okay, go outside and climb the tree. I was like, okay. So I put the tray down, went outside, climbed a tree, played with my little brother for about 20 minutes, came back inside and go, I think I'm ready. Let's go. And she goes, okay, sat down with her again. And it gets to the point where Reagan is now on the bed. Her head turns around. Oh, no. And I go, I can't do this. And she goes, okay, go downstairs and play NBA Jam on your Nintendo. I was like, okay. So I went downstairs and played Nintendo and all that. Came back upstairs and go, I think I'm good. She goes, okay. She explains to me what happens. And I start the movie back up. And we did this 3 or 4 times. And before you know it, I made it to the end of the movie. And I was like, she goes, so what'd you think? I go, you know, it's not that bad, actually. You know? And so it became one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And the best part is one of our other hosts, Caitlin, she's my neighbor. And she had never seen The Exorcist. So last year I was like, well, you need to see this. So brought it over to her apartment and we're sitting there watching it and it's dark out. and I'm as close to the lamp as possible. And she asks me midway through the movie, she goes, why do you keep standing up? And I go, huh? She goes, you're standing up at the weirdest points. And I go, probably because this is where I take breaks in the movie. And my body just knows to get up at certain points and sit back down.
Dude, it's like a trauma response.
Absolutely is. It is totally a trauma response. I'm sure there's psychiatry out there for it. But for me, it is the end all be all. That, and most people think The Exorcist is my Halloween movie, but it's not. My Halloween movie is Trick or Treat.
Really?
Yeah, I love Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat is one of those anthology movies that nobody really knows about unless you've seen it. And then if you've met somebody who's seen it, they brag about it constantly.
Right.
It's so good. Have you seen this?
I have seen it. Yes, I've seen it. Dude, and it doesn't feel like, look, a lot of people that I talk to, their Halloween movie is usually Halloween, right? I don't know. I get it, but then again, I'm like, there's a lot of other films out there. Dude, I mean, look, man. See, I had a similar experience.
Oh, okay.
Well, well, I think growing up, I'm trying to think about this. Hold on. All right, so growing up, my uncle we would watch horror movies together. And what he would do is every time a scary part would come up, I'd cover my eyes. And I say this all the time, and I hope he never gets mad whenever he hears this. But he would sometimes he would make me watch. There was a scene from The Leprechaun where this girl was tied to a chair. I remember. See, this is how you just remember these things, these moments. And it was a scene from one of the Leprechaun movies, I think. And there was a fan with open blades, and it was just one of these moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I should not be experiencing this, seeing this. This is a thing that people do to people. Oh my gosh. And between that and my look, Nightmare on Elm Street forever messed me up, man. I think seeing it at that age and then seeing how I don't know. I was going to ask you, what about The Exorcist is scary? I know that everybody has their own answer to that, but for me with Nightmare on Elm Street, it's not really even Freddy Krueger. I think it's the idea of not knowing what's real and and how those movies present. You could just be doing something and you would not, quote unquote, nod off, but nothing really paused or was different. But then you kind of notice things were, off and different, right? So but I would not go to sleep. And this was at a time I remember when after the late night shows, they played like the what they played.
Like the old Toxic Avenger movies and stuff
Well,
like
no,
that.
they would play like that like the anthem. I think that's,
Oh,
yeah. Remember when
let's talk
cable,
Poltergeist.
yeah, yeah, like it would just kind of stop. They're like, hey, we don't do this all night, you know. So hey, just we'll see you in the morning, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, man, I would just stay up in bed. I wouldn't go to sleep because I was afraid to go to sleep and have a nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's funny, but that's it, man. Like we're talking about the experience that
Oh
comes
yeah.
with that. Like, you know, you can see a cool, fun action movie, walk out of the theater feeling like the protagonist, feeling really excited and like ready to take on the world or be Luke Skywalker or
Mm-hmm.
Harry Potter or whatever. But there's something about these scary experiences that just, I don't know, is it our fight and flight mechanisms that just burst when we watch these types of movies?
You know what I think it is? I think it's just a matter of we like to feel unsafe when we are always so safe
It's-
all the time.
yeah.
It's the exhilaration of the not safe. We all know it's fake. It's on a TV screen. But for some odd reason, our brain says, if you put down your phone and just watch this, you'll be messed up for about 24 hours.
Mm-hmm. So what was it about The Exorcist? Like, if you don't mind sharing that, like,
You know, The Exorcist is such a funny movie because there's really only one song on the soundtrack, and it's Tubular Bells. The rest of the movie is largely silent. And it was really the first movie I'd seen that didn't have some operatic score like John Williams or something like that.
mm-hmm.
And so I'm watching this, and when Reagan walks down the stairs, and everybody gets silent, and she just looks at people with that deadpan face and says, "You're going to die if you go up there," and then urinates on the floor. There's no like if that was made today, you'd hear some large sound to make you do a jump scare, and
Yeah.
but this is just that kind of terror that's like you can read it on her face. And I think for me also, it's the fact that I was around the same age as Reagan.
Oh, that's right.
It's we were around the same age. I'm looking at this little girl going, "Gosh, he's really cute for my age."
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Right.
and about an hour later, you're like, "Oh God, what happened to your face?"
Right.
But it was one of those things where it's like I just really, really liked what I was seeing on the screen out of her. I believed a child actor when I was a child.
Ooh,
It
that's
wasn't like watching You Can't Do This on television on Nickelodeon. It was,
right.
this is what acting is like. Holy cow. And she was so good. And it's so funny listening to the story about why she was snubbed from the Oscar for that role, which is that if she had used her own voice in the second half of that movie, she would have been eligible to win an Oscar. But because it was somebody else's voice, they knocked her out of the running.
This is the first time I'm hearing this little
Oh yeah.
factoid. Really?
Yeah.
Because her
Absolutely.
voice was dubbed. They didn't. Oh, wow.
Yep. But the funny part is if you watch the behind the scenes of that and you see her actual voice, it is just as frightening.
Is it really? Oh, dude, I'm gonna have to look that up
God,
now.
yeah, check out stuff on YouTube about that. But
I will.
there are so many movies that as a child, because I didn't really watch scary movies really until I was like 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
So all the movies I saw when I was a kid, like Poltergeist, messed me up. That was at a birthday party at my buddy Jim Barnes's house, and Jim Barnes ended up being a writer for The Walking Dead.
What?
Absolutely. It's so weird how our lives get entangled.
I'm saying.
Yeah. But I remember telling his mom, I can't watch this because it's supposed to be really scary and I won't go to sleep. And they were like, okay, well, we'll watch something else. And their mom put in Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh,
that was not a good thing to do
great.
either.
Good transition. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Good second pick there.
But when it comes to Halloween movies today, scary movies today, it is mostly jump scares. And I used to poo-poo the jump scare, but I recognize its relevance because we live in a time when everybody's attention is 7 seconds long for the most part. So the jump scare is proportionally an elongated Reagan staring at you for today's population. And as someone who doesn't have kids himself, I don't get to relive these really unless I'm bending the rules at school. Like my students, I teach 8th grade math, and I know this. This week I've been posting all the movies I'm watching every night, and so I posted Poltergeist, and immediately a bunch of my former students started going, I remember watching this in class. I remember watching this in
Y'all
class.
watched Poltergeist?
Oh my God, yes.
Oh
And
my gosh.
well, here's the thing. It's PG.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah,
So
well,
I get around it that way.
there you go.
And
Yeah.
and they always, because it always starts off with the anthem. You see the anthem at night,
Yeah.
and the kids are like, "Did they really do that back then?" Yeah, yeah, they did. And then the anthem stops, and they're like, "That's around the time when they start to go, looks kind of stupid and dumb." And then you see the spirit hand fly out of the TV, and they all freak out. And I usually stop it there, going, "Well, we don't have to watch the rest of this. We're good." They're like, "No, no, no, start it, start it." Okay, okay, we'll watch this. So I'm always trying to expose them to the scary stuff from when I was a kid.
Right.
Like, so they could see Gremlins. I let them watch Gremlins. And
Okay,
uh
Gremlins. Good pick. Good
yeah,
pick.
uh there it takes a really special class for me to go, okay, we're going R, everybody.
We are going
But
R.
we're going R. And I think the worst move though okay. The worst movie I ever showed the kids was on the last day of school with only my one period of class, which I knew was insulated from everybody. I could have showed them a real murder and them and like, yeah, life was
Ah,
school
cool.
school today.
Yeah.
Mr. Sarah taught us math today. Uh, but the movie I showed them was Evil Dead from 2013.
Oh, interesting.
Which, have you seen this?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So I showed them the Red Band trailer first, and they were kind of like, this is frightening. I go,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to watch this. And they're like, can we start it?
Mm.
Sure. So we made it through the movie, and I had a girl show up from that class a year later. I was at a basketball game watching, and she showed up and she was sitting down, and I go, how you doing? She goes, I can still see that girl licking that box cutter, Mr. Sarah, and it still messes me up.
Oh, and you're like, yeah, sorry about that.
No, I said, you're welcome.
Oh, you'll thank me later. Yeah,
You
dude.
gotta say these things. You gotta temper yourself and steal.
I know, man, but I feel like that's just like part of the experience too, is like watching
Yeah.
scary movies when you're younger and like you said, like birthday parties and stuff like that. I remember going two movies that I remember seeing for a friend's birthday was Paranormal Activity and
Oh, God.
and The Ring. And like we were still like 5th, 6th, 7th grade, I think, around this point.
Yep.
So yeah, those are different types of, horror that I'm into more than I probably thought I'd ever be, is like, found footage. I think because of movies like Blair Witch and stuff, which some of these don't age as well, but at the time I think there's an eeriness of like, man, this looks pretty real. Like
Funny is that Blair Witch hasn't aged very well, but Paranormal Activity is timeless.
it does feel like I think that the people debate about this, but the thing with the Blair Witch Project was like the marketing and how it was like kind of told to people like, hey, is this real? Like this is really kind of before the internet. You could just Google, hey, is the Blair Witch Project real? But
it was really the first viral marketing.
yeah, and like the mythology and stuff like that. I know people talk about it now. They're like, yeah, but like, what am I supposed to be afraid of? Like, what's really going on? Is it a witch? Is it this? Whatever.
Mhm.
But it's just I think any good horror plays on just common fears, and being lost in the woods is a spooky idea, amongst other things, or like you said,
Or cornfields.
or just being lost in general is a freaky feeling when you're
Yeah.
uncharted territory. But like you were talking about watching something in a safe space, or feeling like you're safe and being exposed to dangerous elements and stuff like that, I think that goes into the same concept of like Paranormal Activity, where you're watching people like in the comfort of their own home,
Yeah.
and this stuff is happening when you are supposed to be the most vulnerable.
And you know what? I really give credit to those institutions that tend to take it that step further. Because if you watch Paranormal Activity, chances are you're on your couch.
Right.
Well, take it a step further and watch it in bed.
Oh no.
Right.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Or you see the people that watch Jaws on floaties in the ocean on a big screen.
Oh, what are
You're
these
like,
people thinking?
what the hell are you thinking? That's the thing is, it's when you decide to go, I'm going to go a little bit further. I'm going to watch The Cabin in the Woods in a rickety cabin in the woods.
Ooh,
Or I'm going to watch Blair Witch in a tent out camping.
that would be great.
those are those little extra steps for those, like those people are psycho. I can't do that.
Can't do
I'll
that.
watch it on my couch. I'm good. I'm not going to watch The Exorcist.
In a
I'm
graveyard
not going to watch
or in
that
a
movie in a church.
yeah. Oh yeah, I
I'm
hope
not
not.
safe.
Oh man. Yeah, dude, I totally understand what you're saying, but that's kind of going back to that original thing that I brought up about just movies, especially horror movies, being, synonymous with Halloween. It's like Christmas. It's like you watch a
Mhm.
Christmas movie, what it does, you're surrounded by decorations, you're just surrounded by, it's just like an atmosphere, it's a mood, it's a mindset that you get into, and
Oh yeah.
it's just that, like you said, that time of year where you're just gonna let your guard down a little bit, expose yourself to some like
Mhm.
frights and scary moments. And I don't know where horror movies are right now. I guess I hope we don't go on this whole like we're just gonna remake all the ones that you guys remember, because I know
Yeah.
that wasn't it news the other day that they're gonna do a Halloween universe. They're gonna make a TV show. Miramax bought out the
Oh
rights.
no. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they're trying to squeeze as much juice out of that orange, and there's just nothing left.
There isn't, man, and I hate it because like my girlfriend loves the originals, and see, I'm a
Mhm.
fan of like Nightmare, and I think I feel like there's that. I love the Universal Monster Studio
Okay,
movies.
yeah.
I love all those. I have that collection. I watched that all during October, from Wolfman, Dracula, those classic black and white films. I love those, but I honestly really love like the Friday the 13th, Child's
Okay.
Play, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, those like that I don't know what kind of I guess that's like a slasher.
Oh yeah, those are slashers.
Those
Yeah.
are just slashers, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, I love the variety of what horror has. Like,
Right.
I will watch the slasher, I will watch the sci-fi horror, and then I'll watch Tucker and Dale versus Evil,
Yeah, there
which
you
is
go.
so underrated. But I love horror comedies too. And
Yeah.
so when I make my list, I make it so it is so like uneven that you have no idea what you're going to watch the next day, but you're probably going to enjoy it. It's either going to make you laugh, make you scared, or be like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And then 2 days later, you wake up thinking something's happening.
Right? It's the impact that it can have on you, man. And kind of like you
Yeah.
said, like, oh man, I got to go to the bathroom, but it was kind of spooky down there. I don't know,
Yeah.
man.
Like
Man.
tonight, I have to watch Alien. I'm not looking forward.
Oh, dude, they're playing that at that theater I was telling you about next Tuesday. I'm
Hmm.
hoping we can go. That would be really cool to see it at this like very nice, classy, small, tucked away, forgotten theater. It's really cool, man.
Yeah.
So it'd be really fun to see that there. That's gonna be a blast, and that's what you like. You're saying, dude. There's so many different genres. Alien, man, those are good films.
Oh, yeah.
Man, it's just So what are your favorites? Like, what are your go to horror Halloween movies that you would suggest to people? Like, if you had
Okay.
like just a handful to
I've got
suggest.
I got a whole list for you, man.
Okay.
Okay. So, uh, if I go by what I've highly rated from
Right.
our show, my highest rated shows are The Exorcist, Evil Dead 2013, Scream is always a great one to watch.
Right.
Not
Right.
so scary, but enough of a scare to get the family involved.
Right.
Um, the Thing from 1982 is great. Cabin in the Woods is an all-time favorite for me. And Poltergeist still messes me up. But there's also things like The Fly. I love The Fly, body horror. With Jeff Goldblum. I mean, nobody could have played an insect better than this bug-eyed guy. But then I've got this penchant for the schlocky, like the Evil Dead franchise. Evil Dead 1, 2, and 3, they aren't great looking movies. They're not well budgeted, but darn it if it's not comfort food.
Right.
And then I got the Friday the 13th from 1980. Awful movie, but for some reason I have to watch this. That's one of my favorite shows we ever recorded. Me and Josh did that, and we laughed our entire way through. It was just one of those where it's like, how did this spawn a franchise?
Right.
What, like, and he made a good point when he goes, so the counselor decides he's going to get pie and is gone for 8 hours.
Yo, who made this up? Come on now. Yeah. And
There's
then
a woman who's thrown through a window by a 65-year-old grandma.
Oh, gotcha. Makes sense. I can
Yeah.
see it happening. Sure. Why not?
I usually post my list, and I post in my classroom also so the kids can see what they should be watching this week.
Cool.
And so I got like Evil Dead, I got Oculus. Oculus is a great movie.
Yeah, that's a good flick.
Um, Dawn of the Dead. Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead is fantastic.
Oh, I like
Uh,
those. You like a good zombie flick?
it's got to be a good one. Like, you got to be a good one. Like I used to have Night of the Living Dead on there, the original, and I was like, there's really only one spot I really remember, and that's they're coming to get you.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Zombieland's an awesome movie.
That is.
Uh,
That's fun
uh,
too.
Shaun of the Dead. I mean,
Funny.
fantastic. Misery. I love
Mm.
the movie Misery.
Are you a big Stephen King fan?
I am not like. Here's the thing. I'm a big Stephen King fan if I'm not going to finish the book.
Like,
If I finish the book, it's not a good book.
wait, hold up.
His
Okay.
endings are never good.
So you just get to that 75% mark and you're like, I'm gonna make it up from here, Steven. Don't worry, I got
That's about
you.
it. I get 75% through. I'm like, okay, I've hit the peak. I'm good.
I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good premise, good foundation here, but I think I'm gonna take it from here. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I got Alien and Aliens on my list. The Omen from 1976.
Mm.
American Psycho's great. Let's see. The Strangers. Oh,
Yeah, that's good.
that what I love about The Strangers is the fact that for the first half hour, you see what's happening, but nothing's happening. Like you see
Yeah.
a head pop out through the hall and then go back away. And you're like, did I just see that?
Yeah.
And it reminds me of Hill House, actually, because Hill House did
Yeah.
something very similar to that in the first few episodes where you saw things moving in the background, but they never called attention to it.
That was actually something that I don't know if it's so much prominent in this the Fall of the House of Usher. But what he used to do is he would have like ghosts in the background of shots that they would release after like the season had been out, where he'd go, here's a highlight reel of like all the times you were looking at a ghost in the background, you just didn't even notice. You know?
Right.
And maybe you did, and then you're like, oh shit, like did you see that? Like, am I tripping out over here? What's going on?
There were a few times where I had to stop the show and be like, wait, hold on. Let me pause
wait a
that back.
minute.
Did I just see that?
And that's freaky. There's something about that. That does more to scare me than a jump scare. But I like you, I respect and understand the purpose of the jump scare. But
Right. Yeah. I mean, I have The Conjuring on there.
okay, that's good.
I've got 28 Days Later.
Good.
Great movie.
Good. I like it.
Drag Me to Hell by Sam Raimi.
Yeah, I dig that too.
It's an ASMR nightmare.
Yes, absolutely. Do you think Sam's gonna do any more horror?
I think he's got one more left. He'll probably. I mean, here's the thing. he tried to do horror with Multiverse of Madness. Scott Derrickson dropped out of that one because apparently his movie was going to be too scary, so they brought in Sam Raimi, which is kind of like saying, "Guess what? You're not scary." And he did his best. And the horrifying parts of that movie are really good visually, but I don't know. I think Raimi is just kind of like a mercenary at this point.
Yeah.
He's just director for hire.
Which
Beetlejuice
is-
is on the list, and I
Ooh,
got
nice.
let's see. There's two more on here. Aliens, obviously. A Quiet Place.
Oh, well, real quick, how do you feel about Beetlejuice getting a sequel?
I don't.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what Kevin Smith said when he was telling a story about his time trying to get the writing rights for Superman.
Oh man, tell me.
Yeah, he does this. It's on YouTube. It's free. I encourage anybody on your audience to watch this. But he's doing a lecture at this college. This is when he was still rather like rotund.
Yeah.
And he's doing this lecture, and somebody asked him about his experience with Superman Lives, which was supposed to be the Nicolas Cage movie that Tim Burton did. Kevin Smith was the original writer, and he tells this story about him getting the writing rights and the producers asking him, "What will you do with the movie?" And he gives his ideas, and he gets to meet one of the producers, and the whole thing is hysterical. And the way it ends is fantastic. The way he ends the story, because he's a great storyteller. But there's a part in it when he's like, yeah, so we want to hire you for a movie. And the movies we have are this one movie, whatever it was. He goes, Beetlejuice 2, Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. And he looks at the audience, he goes, I don't think there's anything more to do with Beetlejuice at this point.
Wait a minute. Did you just say Beetlejuice goes Hawaiian. They wanted to do a
Yes.
summer beach flick with
They wanted to
Beetlejuice.
do that. And the third movie was Superman Lives, and that's how he goes into the story.
Okay.
So that Beetlejuice 2 movie has been waiting forever to be made. And I don't think this movie is going to be that, because I don't think Jenna Ortega wants to burn her cachet at this point.
Right.
So it's probably going to be something completely different than Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. But
I
do
hope.
I think it's necessary to have a Beetlejuice sequel? Look, I love Michael Keaton like the rest, but let's be honest, Michael Keaton in The Flash wasn't exactly the Batman we remember.
I know.
You know? And that was a letdown.
Have you guys talked about The Flash yet? Or
We
you
have
guys
not.
gotta
We
wait?
haven't done the movie yet. I know Steven. Is it Steve and I, or Sam and I were talking about The Flash before it came out. Sam was all excited about The Flash, and he'd sit there and make fun of me because he was like, you're just hating this movie already. And I'm like, dude, they're claiming it's the greatest movie ever made, and it's still 6 months out.
Oh, that's true. They did do that. I was on them.
And you know what? There were a lot of good ideas in it.
Okay.
But ultimately, when everybody knows that this universe is going nowhere, then I shouldn't care.
Let me ask you this,
Yes.
from a storyteller's perspective.
Okay.
How do you like your time travel?
How do I like my time travel? I like it with, let's see. I guess the question is then, are you asking like which mode do I prefer?
Yeah. Which approach, like the rules to time, because everybody kind of does it different.
Yeah, I think the standard and most like basic way of looking at it, the Back to the Future way, is the cleanest way of doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
Because at least they lay out the rules, and they're simple rules, much like Gremlins. We all like 3 rules. And the rules are: don't contact anybody you already know, make as little footprint as possible, and get out of there as fast as possible. And there was another movie called A Sound of Thunder. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I don't think so.
A Sound of Thunder was a movie where they did time travel really, really interesting. It's time travel in this movie is almost like a vacation that you can take with your spouse. And you're allowed to go back to this one specific part in time where there's a dinosaur, and the dinosaur happens to be about to go into a tar pit. So you're not changing anything so long as you stay on the path. But what happens is one person accidentally gets so scared, they step one spot off the path, and they just step on one leaf. They go back to their original time, and time changes in waves, little by little. It changes everything in little waves. They're called time waves, until the point where humans are no longer humans. There's something else completely.
From that minuscule of an action?
Yeah, it's the butterfly effect.
Butterfly effect. Okay, that's cool.
I like that way of looking at it. I didn't know if I was going to like the Marvel way of doing it, which was let's just, go back, and then whatever we do, we'll go back again and replace the stone, and nothing's changed.
Yeah, they kind of tidied that up at the end, I think, right?
Well, here's the thing. There was a clean way of doing that they missed an opportunity on, which is that when Hulk is getting that entire synopsis of how to do time travel properly from the Ancient One, he then takes the stone and hops off the building and goes off to do his own thing. At that moment, it cuts away to something else. And what they should have done is linger on the Ancient One, and the door that had opened, you should see Captain America walking through it with the stone going, "This is yours," and then going away again.
Oh, please.
That's how you fix it. And they didn't do it. But then here's the thing. I love the idea of a multiverse. You just can't shoot it because there's too much detail to pay attention to then.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great idea. I love Loki and how they're like, oh yeah, if you step off the line, you branch into something completely different. But then how many different shows do you have to watch to stay on top of everything?
I know, it's almost getting too, especially like you said, when they were like shoving TV shows down our throats, right?
Yeah.
And I get it. They had this thing with Disney Plus, a new platform. They needed something to carry it, and but at the same time, I think correct me if I'm wrong, because I actually haven't watched any of the shows. I have followed up on them. I've been spoiled. I know, for the most part. But like this Loki is not even the Loki that we got familiar with, right? Because in the one that we know actually did die. This is another timeline Loki. Am I correct?
This is the Loki from the Avengers first movie.
Oh, see, so he didn't go through any of that other stuff.
No, no. In fact, when
Ah,
he gets abducted by the time variant authority, he doesn't know that eventually he dies by Thanos' hand. So at one point, he's sitting there with Owen Wilson, who happens to be his handler, and he goes, they're basically talking about what makes a Loki, and that is you are doomed to fail and make heroes out of the people who will kill you.
ah,
And he watches he happens to get in the room by himself at one point, and he fast forwards the parts of his life that he knows he's not going to experience, and he sees his mother die,
oh,
and he
that's right.
sees him betray Thor for the throne, and he sees his father pass away, and Hela, and all those things that occur, including him stealing the Tesseract and giving it to Thanos almost only to die right afterwards. And he realizes that at that point, I've got to change something because this is not a way to live. So he
Wow.
tries to do something a little bit different. He's still Loki. He's still
Yeah.
mischievous and all that stuff, but he's now saddled with the idea of understanding where his future is. And what I understand is that I've heard a lot of rumblings that Loki, based on all this, is going to end up creating his own group of quote unquote Avengers to tackle Kang
Really?
because he understands time now and he understands how it works, and he's going to do that himself now. He'll be the Nick Fury of time.
You know, when we look back at the MCU
Yeah.
and think of certain things and reflect on them, it's kind of like you said with like the Blair Witch or something like where sometimes they won't age well because they're kind of in that moment. And I think
Right.
something like with Loki, I think this is super interesting and super clever and almost like logical from like the story standpoint when you're doing the multiverse and doing time travel. But I think like them Marvel has gotten caught up in like having to carry the overall arcing story within everything they do, because
Yeah.
when you see Loki the television show, it's not what I would have thought I would have saw for a Loki TV show. Maybe because I grew up with him in green spandex and his weird little helmet, just doing stuff like that. But
Right.
instead, it's like him in a regular jacket and, suit and tie
Which
and traveling
that
time.
that version does show up in the show.
Does he? Okay, cool.
There's a point in the show where he hits this one spot where all of the Lokis from all the multiverse
Ah,
are. And you see Kid Loki, and you see the original Loki with the white spandex and the big horns. And
wow.
there's even an alligator Loki.
Gosh. See,
Yeah.
that's the fun things about the multiverse, but I think when you start introducing time travel and the multiverse, it's hard to get connected to these certain characters because you just think to yourself, there's like like infinity amount of like possibilities. So there's
Yeah.
like if this person dies, just replace them. Like I feel
Well,
like you know,
you're right. And I'm a firm believer that after seeing everything that's occurred, is that if you're going to do a multiverse, you have to sacrifice one idea. And it's either you're sacrificing time as an element or you're sacrificing planes of existence. If you have both, then anything can occur and there are no stakes. So, for instance, in the multiverse, if every single multiverse is on the exact same timeline relative to each other, then it would make sense for Doc Ock to show up in No Way Home. What
mm,
doesn't make sense is that Goblin does also, because Goblin died long before Doc Ock did.
right?
And so that tells you that time travel is an issue in this also. And now it becomes ugly because even Doc Ock in the movie No Way Home says, uh, Norman died. Why is he here?
Mm-hmm. I remember
You
that.
know? And in doing this, it becomes messy. And you realize, okay, he's merely an Easter egg that the producers want to put in there to make you go, hey, look, we got this too.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, and I think Star Wars is guilty of this also, which is they're infatuated with Easter eggs,
Yeah.
and like one of my least favorite things is in Rogue One. Let's do a close up of the blue milk because remember the blue milk, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't care.
Let's
You're
move
reminding me
on.
of a better movie.
I know. And then they did that in what, Last Jedi too? They're just like,
Yes.
I'm like, come on. We get
And
it.
Steve and I were talking about Star Wars, and he's like, oh, what if they did one like a long, long time ago, where it's not even connected at all to what's going on now, and it takes place long before all the Jedi and all that stuff. I go, that's great. I would love to see that, but I don't think Disney has the restraint to not go wink, wink, nod, nod. Remember Anakin? Ha! Because
Right.
if you do that, you remind us of something better.
Yeah.
And that was ultimately the killer of Ghostbusters 2016, which was the all female Ghostbusters. It wasn't the fact that it was all female. The problem with that show was they took every single original Ghostbuster and put them in random spots, including Harold Ramis as a statue on a wall, reminding you of better times.
Oh my gosh.
And when you see that, it takes you out of the movie completely because you're like, oh, I wish I was watching that.
Yeah.
Oh,
It-
and that's a problem that a lot of these production companies have right
yeah, and that's it, dude. I think I hope that because of these strikes and everything, I think with budgets, I think they're going to get smaller. I think we're hopefully going to get back into like something. I love superheroes and I love these franchises and I love that people want to enjoy them, and there's a selfish part of me that wants them to always make Star Wars movies and always make Harry Potter movies and Lord of the Rings shows, and
now.
yes, keep doing it. But I have to be honest with myself about my expectations, and also be aware that these things are changing. It's like I grew up with the prequels being my thing, and so many people hating the prequels, and now I'm the guy who's like, the Disney trilogy is terrible, curse you Disney, like prequels and now. But also I'm seeing that sometimes they do listen to feedback. I haven't been following Star Wars, like I don't have Disney Plus, so I stay in touch with all these things, but I don't really watch them, and that's on me. I need to do that to actually, I feel, to have a valid opinion on things. But I will say, it seems like maybe it's just my generation, but a lot of the content that we are seeing from them is trying to like, hey, look, there's what you just saw, the Disney shit. We know we didn't think that out, but there are some good ideas here, right? And it can't go away. So we have to. It is what it is. But we know that you love the original trilogy, and we know that there's now kids growing up that watched the Clone Wars, that got attached to characters like Anakin and Obi-Wan when they were at that stage, or just that. But I also know that they're doing the High Republic book series, where they have like, that's like your friend said, like here's all the way back then, like this
Right.
is. So we can kind of we have more creative freedom here because we don't have to tie everything together. But they're still, like you said, kind of going, hey, look, it's Anakin Skywalker. Remember him, kids? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I remember when the Ahsoka series was going on, everybody got all excited about Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's great that he's there. And he still looks capable, but he also doesn't have a massive prosthetic on his head he has to manage the entire time while fighting.
Right.
That's why she doesn't look good fighting.
Right.
And unfortunately, if you're not going to spend the money on the CGI to get that done, it's not going to look good.
No.
But for me, we have a big thing on our show, which is that you never comment on something you've never seen. And like, so many people are like, oh, well, Rotten Tomato score was this. And we here at the Movie Planet, we hate Rotten Tomatoes. It's the percentage is not a percentage. Our percentage is an actual grade percentage.
Right.
But theirs is like, oh, 85%. Oh, that's a B. No, 85% thought it was a 6 or out of 10 or higher.
Right.
And when you look at it that way, you realize, oh, critics are actually saying it's a 6.3 out of 10. Oh, I guess it's not that great. Exactly. But most people don't know that. They see a percentage, they think it's a grade. But so it's the idea of we never comment on something unless we've seen it. And then it's also, we are able here to let go of continuing franchises. For instance, something you'll hear me say, or something Steve will say all the time is, look, my Star Wars is 1 through 6. It's a complete story. It's done. That's the way it is. And I usually, if Steve says that, I'll say something like, yes, Star Wars is 1 through 6, much like Toy Story is 1 through 3. The sequel trilogy is Toy Story 4.
Right,
It's
right.
cute. It's a continuation, but ultimately not necessary. Same with Fantastic Beasts. I love Harry Potter 1 through 7 too, but Fantastic Beasts is an epilogue, and it's an epilogue that happens beforehand.
Yeah, you're right. And look, I couldn't agree more, man. I mean, it's just like, I think that's where people have to, you almost have to remain sane when you're dealing with this, because there's going to be things that are really close to you, close to your childhood, close to, like, you know, just things that you've enjoyed in life that bring you joy, and whether they used to or they still do. You know, we can find ourselves pretty protective of those things. But at the same time, like, nobody can take away those things. So it's about reframing and recalibrating how you look at the things. Like you said with Stephen King, man, it's like, hey, buddy, thanks for 75% of the story. I think I got it from here. Good job.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what you kind of have to do. I do that. Like, that's why I've lost investment. I think after Endgame with the MCU, it just kind of felt like a signal for an end of an era. And, you know, we're kind of living through that, you know, pandemic happened, and on streaming services, a lot of different things are taking place. The strikes, I think, like, things moving forward look very different. And it's really hard to tell right now how that's going to look. But hopefully it's for the better. You know, I think that's what anyone can agree on, is that we just want, you know, good stories, good movies, everyone to get treated fairly and get paid. And, you know, I mean,
we were so fortunate that Endgame happened
when
a year before the pandemic.
And you're right. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine that? They left off with a cliffhanger, and then they're like, yeah, sorry, theaters are closed.
And they were able to sneak in Spider-Man Far From Home right before the pandemic. And in doing that, they closed out the Infinity Saga. And then they flailed around for about 6 months, and WandaVision came out.
Yeah.
You know, because originally the first movie to come out was supposed to be Black Widow. And if you look at the original slate of movies, it makes more sense how it would have gone out. You could see that there was probably a through line between all of them.
Yeah.
But when they were stuck with just the pandemic and here's a new streaming service, well, we need to pimp this out somehow. So let's use the Marvel properties because Star Wars has nothing yet. And it was just a matter of, okay, well, here's all of our shows. That'll get us through the time. They kept pushing Black Widow down the line. When it came out, people didn't like it because, well, it doesn't fit into what the new shows are doing.
Right.
Well, you know what? It's the most MCU of the MCU movies. It is, because it one thing it's not doing, it's not preaching to you.
Right.
It's not trying to take a character and push them out of the way for something new.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be right after Civil War. And when you look at it that way, you realize this is a necessary piece to what we end up seeing out of Black Widow later on. And what's nice is that it introduces Yelena Belova, who I think is the best new character in the MCU next to Kate Bishop in Hawkeye.
Really? Okay.
Those two characters are the best written. They're the most MCU characters written ever, because they don't try to sit there and force anything down your throat. It's just, we're characters first, and then we're identities later.
Right.
And that's something that we love here. We love the fact that when we see a character who is their character first and not just their identity, that's someone we buy into. But when you force the identity over the character, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, I totally get that. And that seems to be a trend. And, like, unfortunately,
it is.
It's no
topic to talk about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, but, you know, at the same time, it's just been so interesting to see, because I don't think that Disney or Star Wars or Marvel over the last couple of years have really, like, rebounded in a way from, like, that moment they had to pause, and then they just started. I think that just really screwed them up.
Yeah, it did.
And I think them shoving out 4 Marvel movies a year was just asking too much of people. And, you know, I don't know when we'll see another actual official Star Wars movie. I recently started getting into Star Trek, man. Like I had been
The original ones?
yeah, well, the original ones, the
Yeah.
movies, the new shows, some of the old show like Next Generation and stuff, and then the Strange New Worlds is pretty good. That's what
Okay.
really got me going. But it's just funny to see some of how these franchises adapt and change and evolve over time. And I think that's what's kind of fun, if anything. Even if it's like a dumpster fire, you still kind of have to go, huh, that's how do you take how do you take this thing and just fumble it so hard?
Well, I mean, speaking of Star Trek is responsible for one of the greatest rebounds ever. After
Oh,
Motion Picture, which was a quote unquote dumpster fire, uh, Wrath of Khan.
oh man.
Holy cow. Like, if you had told me that the production studio had been like, wow, Motion Picture, that was the slowest movie ever. Hey, can you give us more money?
Yeah. How do you do that?
Okay, one more.
Sure.
And they give
Okay.
us arguably the greatest Star Trek movie ever in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah. Still holds up today, man.
You know what? I almost want to watch that tonight instead of Alien.
Hey, there you go. I'd have a double
got me
feature.
feeling Star Trek now because it's been a while since I've rewatched all the movies, and
Oh man.
I know myself on my Vudu, I have them all laid out.
Do
Not
you?
just, I do. I have them all on my Vudu, and what I do is I watch them in a very specific order.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
because I have the J.J. Abrams Star Treks interwoven in it because they share different timelines, but they're relative to each other.
Oh, that's
Yes, the
true.
part, yeah, at the end of I think Star Trek 5, that's the last time we see Spock. It's 5 or 6. Then what happens is that's when I do Star Trek Undiscovered Country, uh,
Oh,
which is the second Star Trek movie with Khan in it.
see,
I think
I
that's
see,
what it is.
I
Yeah,
see,
and so
I see.
when you watch it that way, because he makes an appearance there saying, yes, there's one person that Kirk had a problem with a long time ago in my universe, and his name was Khan. And that's when Benedict Cumberbatch introduces himself as Khan.
Dude, that's cool. I didn't, like me being fresh to these movies and these stories too. Like Strange New Worlds was kind of like a hard introduction because I don't know,
Okay.
I just jumped on it and then I was like, oh, okay. So this is like a throwback, like kind of a retro version of Star Trek. It's not something that like is progressing forward. They're like telling a story that's almost a prequel to the
Mhm.
original crew. But just kind of, I don't know. There's like I maybe it's just me, man. I love Marvel being connected. Maybe I like all these shows that are just got this like constant story thread that goes through each
Yeah.
and every one of them. But I kind of miss just episodic, just monster of the week or problem of the week, and then you just kind of like, okay, yeah, there's some certain themes and storylines that go beat to beat, but
Yeah.
for the most part, you can just watch. You could start up you could watch Strange New Worlds and pick any episode and start there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I like that. I kind of miss that. We don't get that as often. Everything has to be connected. But
It's an investment. That's the thing.
yeah,
If you're going to do that, it's an investment by the shareholders, and you better have a quality product because they're just not going to give you chances anymore. I mean,
right.
stuff gets canceled off of Netflix, and you're sitting there going, "How? I was watching that, and it was great."
I
Um,
know. It makes it
but
really
one,
hard to commit or trust them. You're like, hey man, I'll watch this, but can't promise this will go on. This story will continue. And
yeah,
I think that's changed the way that these writers have had to write. You almost have to write in a cliffhanger and be like, hey, we got to get people to want us to come back because we're not sure. But I guess that's
well,
always been the case, right?
oh yeah, I think one of the happiest mediums of the genre TV, if you will, uh, involving monster of the week and or long form story. It was a really happy marriage, and that was Supernatural.
Yeah, Supernatural.
Supernatural season 1 was a monster of the week show.
It
It had a
definitely
very
was.
very very vague B plot, but for the most part it was monster of the week. And then in the second season, they decided to take the monster of the week, maybe do every second show something that's more story based overall.
Right.
And then by the time you get to season 5, you realized you have a full arc that's occurred from 1 to season 5. And it's one of the greatest TV arcs ever that nobody talks about because when they started the Monster of the Week idea, no one watched.
I hate that, dude. I really do.
Exactly. And
Gosh.
it lasted for 15 seasons.
It's a
And the
lot.
best part, and I own it, and I've rewatched it several times. And for me, it's so funny watching 1 through 5, and then there's this drop off from 6 to 7 where they don't know what they're doing, and then the storyline picks up at 8 again and just it's full bar all the way to 14.
Yeah, you got to have
And
filler. You got to have some like just like, yeah, we're not really going to progress the main story here. We're just having some fun, you know.
oh yeah, yeah, and I enjoy it more and more every time I watch it. Another one, which was Monster of the Week, that saved the CW was Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, yeah, that's on Comet.
Yeah,
That's that and X-Files, they play that all the time.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And because I remember that show starting off, and I remember seeing the movie, and I thought the movie sucked. And I saw the TV show, and I was like, okay, this should have been the movie.
No.
And that started off also as Monster of the Week. And then eventually, I think it was a season 2. They did season 1, which was only 8 episodes. And they decided, okay, because of how strong the last episode was, we'll give you a 22 episode contract. And that's when they did the whole Buffy and Angel thing.
Oh,
And
okay.
when they did that, that was the love story that captured the hearts of millions across the nation. And it was the forbidden love for
Yeah.
22 episodes. And it became the foundation that they built all the other seasons on. You could literally just start from season 2 of Buffy and you wouldn't have missed anything.
Wow.
Season 1 is all just prep.
Well, let me ask you something, Joe. Hearing you
Yeah.
talk about TV shows and stuff, I know you do Movie Planet podcasts. Would you ever consider like talking about seasons or going episode by episode with certain shows that you like or anything like that? Or
I would do that if I could find someone to make a commitment on it,
okay,
because that's a
it's a
long
lot.
thing. Yeah, like I know there are certain shows that we would absolutely have to do. Like I'd love to do Alias. Alias is a great
That
show.
would be fun.
Alias is awesome. I would you'd have to do Lost at some point.
You would.
Yeah, which I still defend the ending to that show.
Oh man.
I'll stand on that island, no pun intended. And but then there's also like the greatest comedies of all time, like Cheers
Mm.
or Seinfeld, or I'll say How I Met Your Mother or its predecessor Friends, because I think Mother's better.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
Well, do you think how would it change the way you broke them down or reviewed them or talked about them as far as it being such a longer form of content, like an overarching
Yeah.
story? Like would it be very different from the way you look at movies when you're about to like do, an episode on a film?
I think what we would do if we were doing sitcoms, for instance, it'd be very easy to set that up. You do like 4 episodes at a time because, it's a 2-hour block.
Right.
And in doing that, we can import our top 3, bottom 3, and we can do it per episode. Like,
Oh.
or we could also say, okay, what kind of episode is this? Is this a story episode or a filler episode? And if it's a filler episode, is it worthy of watching? Because there are some great filler episodes of TV sitcoms that are better than sometimes the storyline that you have. And so for me, like I look at, like, for instance, the last season of Friends, there's a couple of really good filler episodes where they go to the Bahamas and it's Ross and Joey trying to sleep with Rachel. And no one remembers that part of the show. They remember that season as, what's her name? Monica and Chandler trying to have a baby.
See?
And so it's that secondary piece right there. So is it worth watching? Yes. Does it take away from anything? No. Then you should watch that episode. It's fantastic.
Right.
When it comes to the dramas or the 1-hour long shows, I know there's a lot of people they live and die by CSI.
Yeah.
Those
CSI.
are largely episodic, or NCIS. There's so many people that claim NCIS is great, but I don't know a single person who's ever watched the show. But I look at those and I'm like, okay, is it episodic? Because those shows tend to have to pick a lane and they stick in it.
Yeah.
And if you stick in that lane, because no one does Supernatural anymore, no one's willing to put the cachet into something like that where it's going to be, okay, this will take about 5 seasons to get going.
Right.
Does it kick butt now, or are you trying to tell a long form story? And after Lost, that you saw a bunch of shows that were like Lost sidekicks show up. Like, I think Manifest was one, another show, very Lost like, or Blind Spot, which was Sif from Thor.
Mm.
She
Mm.
stopped Thor to do the show Blind Spot, lasted for 3 seasons and then faded away. But they were all mystery box shows. And it
Right.
was going to be, okay, one long mystery and you're going to figure it all out. And then it gets canceled before you can reveal anything because no one's watching.
Right. It's kind of like right now, everybody's trying to be the next Game of Thrones or something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it reminds me of what I said about Exorcist Believer, which is you keep making these movies that are Exorcist titled. You're never going to be the 1973 version. It's never going to happen. It's like Fetch from Mean Girls. It's never going to happen. Stop
Right.
trying to make it happen, Gretchen. And when this happens, like I could have told, like my buddy at work saw Believer before me, and he goes, "Yeah, it's Dave and Gordon Green," and of course it peters out the end. I'm like, "Well, I'll be the judge of that." And I'm watching. I'm like, Reagan could have kicked both these girls' asses.
Man, yeah. Now hearing your story about The Exorcist, it kind of changes like the way you know, your reaction to this latest film in that whole franchise, man. It's wild, man. Like there's so many possibilities when it comes to you know, these shows and movies, and I wish that, you know, hopefully I like what like A24 has been doing. I know that kind of sounds kind of hipster, or you know, I'm saying like I don't know. I just maybe I'm just at that point in my life, maybe after all of the blockbusters and different things that have happened over the last decade plus. I mean, kind of growing up in that era of just like constant blockbuster franchises. You know, maybe that's a good thing for DC moving forward. Maybe that's what James does differently. It's like, yeah, these will be connected. We're going to have this plotted out, but we're going to give like creative freedoms to the directors and the writers. And we're just going to really try to approach this different, because if they try to just do what Marvel's been doing, even what Marvel's been doing is not working for Marvel right now. So like, I don't know, like I think people are kind of burnt out.
I think also for these companies is that they have to recognize what their audience is.
Right.
And, you know, your genre audience isn't a massive audience. It is a very, very focused audience. So when you're getting feedback, you're not going to get feedback from the Lord of the Rings show from somebody whose name is like, you know, Barbie's my gal.
Yeah.
And this show sucks. Well, guess what? The show isn't for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And
Now that being said, the Lord of the Rings show was not great, but
yeah, that's still
it had some issues. But at the same time, know your audience and then recognize that if you're getting that audience, even if it's not big, it means so much to that group. Invest in it. The word of mouth alone will get people watching a second season.
I think
I didn't watch Lost until the second season.
Yeah.
And I remember when Lost came out, I thought it was, oh, this is just banking off of Survivor, because it came out the same year as Survivor.
Right.
And I was like, this is just a Survivor thing, drama, whatever. And the summer hit, and I kept hearing about how Lost finally got renewed for this second season. And I'm like, okay, let me see what this is. And I remember sitting in my basement watching this going, how did I miss out on this? This is so good.
It's a good feeling though, man. I think that's part of the fun is like, I used to love putting my friends on to different, you know, whether it was a video game, a movie, a band, a song, whatever. Like it was just always fun, and it's always fun when somebody around you's been saying, "Dude, you gotta watch this," and you're like, "Yeah, I got you. I know. I heard it's good."
Yeah.
And then you actually do take time one day, and you're like, "Oh my gosh."
Oh,
it's like bittersweet. You're kind of like you said, like, why did I pass up on this, man? But man, it's a good feeling.
Well, my friends all know I give everything a 3-ep arc. I always watch 3 episodes before I either go on or move on. And but we all have our ways of watching stuff. And for me, 3 episodes, first episode usually just kind of sets the stage. Second episode puts them in a weird position. Third episode, now we're full on the story. You're either invested or you're not. And I got Caitlin to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, because I told her, I go, this for me is how I envision feminism. This is what it should look like on the screen. And she's a hardcore feminist. And she was like, really? This is it? And I was like, you need to watch the show. And when she saw it, she was like, I totally understand you now. I get it.
You get it.
And so she recommended to me, she goes, did you ever watch Dawson's Creek as a kid? And I was like, no, I didn't watch that. It came on after Buffy. And that means it's bedtime. He goes, well, watch it. I'm like, okay. I watched 3 episodes. I was like, no, not for me. I'm good. She goes, well, I'm glad you gave it a try. Then she goes, okay, we'll try this. And she made me watch 3 episodes of Vanderpump Rules.
What?
Dude,
What?
I don't know how, but I got hooked.
You got hooked? Oh my gosh. Did I
I was
have
like, it was a hate watch kind of thing where I'm like,
okay.
I'm old and I hate these young people. And whenever the old lady on the show just smacks them down verbally, I'm like, that's right. You tell them,
Oh my
you
gosh,
know? And
dude.
before you know it, I'm 7 seasons in, and
Seven.
Caitlin and I are watching the show together, the finale, and we're recording an on podcast commentary for this thing.
Oh my gosh, dude. That's it.
And
That's incredible though.
I'm just like, I can't believe that this has happened to me. I don't
It
feel right about
happens,
this at
man.
all.
And look, and I respect you, and I think I appreciate that kind of relationship where it's like an even trade. It's like, look,
Yep.
if I'm gonna suggest something, you gotta, be open minded to whatever I'm gonna suggest to you.
Oh yeah.
And at the end of the day, everybody's just trying to go like, hey, this makes me happy, and I want it to make you happy too. But I understand if it doesn't, if it's not your thing, cool, move on. But at least you gave it a shot, right? So that's awesome, man. That's really cool.
I've been trying forever to get her to watch the MCU, and she won't do it.
She
'Cause
won't
doesn't
do
like-
it.
She doesn't like superhero movies. She doesn't like those action movies that are like that.
That's fair.
And here's the thing, her boyfriend, I know, and I'm like, hey, if you get her to watch all 23 of those first movies, I will give you $500 cash.
Wow.
And
Wow.
he's like, oh, I'll work on it.
Oh, I got you.
I'm like, okay, good. And I'm like, someday he's gonna come to my door going, I'm gonna need that cash now.
I'm gonna
I
need
got
that.
it. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, sure you did. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. That's amazing, dude. I gotta ask you, Joe. I think I've heard you talk about it before, but
Yeah.
you're not really into anime, are you?
Okay. So when you mentioned A24, it reminded me of what I always talk about, which are my blind spots.
Okay.
I have 3 blind spots when it comes to movies:
Okay.
anime, westerns, and A24 movies.
A24. See, now I
And
truly feel like a hipster.
no, but here's why. Here's why. Okay, so anime is because, one, for me, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but I teach middle schoolers all day long. So my whole thing is basically just slamming them down and humiliating them. Okay. And so whenever they're like, Mr. Sarah, you watched the last anime? I go, you mean cartoon?
Oh no, don't
He
call
goes,
it a
it's
cartoon.
anime. And I'm like, guess what? Is it animated? They go, yeah. I go, then it's a cartoon.
Oh no, it's
So I
okay.
do stuff like that.
It's
So
okay.
yeah, but at the same time, there's a style there that doesn't resonate with me.
Okay, that's fair.
But there's also style of American cartoons that don't resonate with me either.
Right.
Like the Phineas and Ferb drawing, stuff like that.
Okay.
I can't get into that. But for some odd reason, watching a Family Guy animated or Rick and Morty, that style works for me.
Okay, I got you.
And so my idea with animated features or animated movies or animated TV shows is that it's a lot like what I think about with musicals, which is if you don't like the music in the musical, you're probably not going to like the musical.
Oh, that's actually a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So if you don't enjoy the main foundation, the style that's going to tell you the story, it's very difficult to plow through.
Hmm.
And for me, like Sam got me to watch Spirited Away.
Yeah, I remember listening to that.
Yeah, and I thought I was pretty fair with it, which is, look, this is not my style of movie, but I understand the work that went into this. I understand the story that's behind it. I appreciate what it is. I think I give it an A minus.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is a really good movie. It's just not a me movie.
Right.
And, so anime is kind of a blind spot for me. JC is big into Westerns, and he was like, let's do The Man from Snowy River. I'm like, I'd rather, shoot myself in the foot, and there's only a couple of Westerns I can get into. And Josh is doing a podcast where they do old Westerns. And
Really?
he's like, oh yeah, I'll, try to find some gateway Westerns for you to get into these. I was like, I trust you. You tell me what to watch and I'll give it a try. I'll always give something to try. And then A24 movies, only because no matter what my opinion is of the movie, it tends to be the opposite of what it's supposed to be.
Oh, I see.
So for instance, Midsommar. What'd you think about Midsommar?
I kind of liked it. Kind
Yeah,
of
and
liked
for
it.
me, I fell asleep.
No, it's okay. No, you're okay. You're okay. You're
Well,
okay.
well, how about this?
Okay.
Hereditary.
I kind of liked it.
And for me, I hated it.
You hated it? Like
I
you
couldn't
like
stand it. I was like, "This
oh
isn't scary." And they're like, "Well, it's traumatic." I'm like, "That's not scary. That's traumatic."
well, I have noticed that theme in horror lately. It seems to be super trauma related, like
Oh, yeah.
Smile and stuff like that. It just seems like that's kind of like we're just gonna kind of play with that more than like I agree. I don't think it's as scary as it is disturbing. Maybe.
Yeah, there's specific emotions that mainstream movies can elicit out of general audiences that make it a really, really good movie. But
Mm,
when you have a focus of an emotion that is segregated from what general audiences may feel, such as trauma, for instance, that's a very specific emotion to get.
mhm.
If you're not someone who's ever had to deal with something like that, it doesn't hit you the same way.
I see.
And it kind of reminds me of the movie Onward that Pixar did right before the pandemic.
Hmm.
Onward, great movie, but if you've never lost a father, that movie doesn't hit you the same way.
I see what you're saying. That's
You
actually
know?
that's a fair way to look at that though. Like it depends on how in some ways how relatable that is. Like
Yeah. Like I
yeah,
remember coming out of Onward going, it was a mid Pixar movie. And I had a couple of friends of mine, they were like, I was in tears the whole time. And I'm
right.
sitting going, how? And they're like, I lost my father 4 months ago. And I'm
See,
like,
yeah.
well, then that makes sense. You're the focused audience for that.
Well, let
Uh,
me. So, how do you feel about that? Like, do you like? I feel like that's something to talk about, and we'll probably wrap up here in a few moments, like or
it
whenever
kind
you
of
know.
goes Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I said about the TV shows and how they should be doing things, which is understand what your audience is and don't go for anything bigger than that until it's earned. Own the audience that you're supposed to have and then you build off of that. Onward had its audience. Uh the A24 movies have an audience.
Right.
They absolutely do. It's one of the greatest independent to mainstream studio successes ever. A24. And I mean, they still claim we're independent. You're not independent. You
No,
shut your
no,
okay.
they're getting
You-
big now. Yeah.
right. You're independent like I got hair on my head.
Yeah.
So and so I look at that stuff and I appreciate when you find those niche studios that know what they're doing and they stick with that. An A24 movie that I loved X.
Oh yeah.
X was a
Okay.
great slasher. I thought that was awesome. And I know people who are A24 fans that are like, that's their biggest failure. And I'm like, what am I not getting?
Right. Right. You just feel like you're on the opposite side of the room, no matter which way you move, and like
No matter what, there's a fat guy at the other end of the teeter totter, and I'm stuck up here.
well,
You
well, that's what I guess. Like part of the thing is now we live in a day and age, right, where you're like, I like how you were approaching it from the company needing to know who's its audience, but the audience also needs to know what's for them. I think you're allowed for sure to constantly try new things and experiences, but I think too many people are relying too heavily on certain websites like Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
They're just blindly going, hey, this number is high and people say we should like it, so I should like it. And then they feel kind of betrayed when they don't. But it's like, hey, just because this movie or this game or whatever, a lot of people like it, doesn't necessarily mean that's a movie for you. I haven't seen Barbie yet. And I spent the last couple months constantly seeing, hey, Barbie just broke another record, and I'm like, damn, without my money too? Like I haven't,
Yep.
like geez. Like I remember when Endgame and stuff, but I felt a part of that. And
Yeah.
I will see Barbie when it's like on demand or whatever. I think that's the plan. And they've had it on there, but they're like, yeah, that'd be $24.99 for the Ultra HD. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. I will wait till like maybe $4.99. We'll see.
The pink is just as bright on standard edition.
I'm not okay. Okay, exactly. Don't charge me for Ultra HD. I don't even think we can.
Right.
But with that being said, I don't fault anybody for liking Barbie or something that I don't understand or like. I think it's just like there's this FOMO that happens nowadays. It's harder to avoid. Like when you used to go to school or go to work and you had a coworker or a classmate that was just like, yo, I saw this movie this week and it was so good. And you're like, oh man,
Mhm.
everybody's so excited. Maybe I should see it. Now it's just like you just are scrolling through Instagram or something and it's like
Right.
constant ads, and it's not even the same. It's not just from the company, it's from content creators, it's from brand, so you're kind of getting flooded with like, you got to see The Exorcist, it's so scary, just pop 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 pop. So but like I think that's why podcasts like yours and other voices that I feel like I can trust more. You're authentic, you're
We're
honest.
you. We're you. That's what it is. We are you. We are not
Yeah,
above you. We are you.
that's amazing, dude. I mean, it's really cool, and that's why I've been join the podcast for the last couple of years, man. And I've found like that this conversation though is probably one of the longest ones I've done in a while, man. This is a big 2 hour special. So
I'm glad I could fill in some time for
yeah,
you.
no, man, it's, I was like, all right, I have a little bit of a structure here, some notes. And then it was just like, well, since I got you here, Joe, what's your thoughts on time travel? So I hope that's okay. Sometimes, the brain just wants to kind of go from here to there and it all makes sense, hopefully in the end. But yeah, man, I really enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, man, I can't praise your podcast enough, dude. I've been entertained for all the episodes I've listened to. Might not always agree with what's being
That's all
said.
right.
That's okay. And there's a lot of moments where I've learned a lot and I've been persuaded else, so yeah, man, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up? Would you like to plug your stuff? And
I mean,
yeah.
make sure you listen to the Movie Planet podcast. We are available on every damn platform. And we just recently, I just figured out that if I unclick something, all 209 of our episodes have been released now onto Apple Podcasts.
What? I just
So,
saw that before recording.
yeah,
It said 200 episodes. I was like, jeez, man.
they are all on there now. And if you actually listen to them in the order they're presented, you can follow along with how those pantheons of every genre are built. And you can hear us reference things from other shows. They become little inside jokes for the audience to listen to. You'll hear the Battle of Whiplash. You'll hear JC and I almost end the podcast over Newsies. Civil War is an iconic moment where JC and I started off about this movie and realized that one of us hates Captain America and the other one loves it, and becomes a 45-minute argument. um, you will hear Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, where JC and Steve try to convince me that much of the Death Star landed on that planet.
Get out of
when I
here.
saw it explode into pieces.
Get out of here.
So we have all sorts of little things like that along the way. And of course, we end up evolving our grades along the way also. We never just give a grade and go, well, that's what it is. 5 years later, we may go, you know what? I watched that movie recently. I gave it an A. I don't know what I was thinking. This movie's a C+, and here is why. And we allow everyone to have their opinion. We may battle over it, but in the end, we respect each other because our opinions are not the same as ourselves. And when we're talking about a movie, we're talking about the movie, not the person. We're talking about the movie itself. And so that's how at the end, we can all shake hands, be friends, cheers each other, and move on to the next movie. So it's all about mutual respect on the show, but it gets contentious and gets a little, we can get a little raunchy at times, and that's okay.
Oh yeah, it's all fun, man. I love it, dude. And I really just got to say one more time, man. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule and recording tonight with me. And
It's been a pleasure. I would have loved to talk about the Detroit Lions with you also, my boys from Detroit.
What? Detroit, baby. Yeah, man. Hey, man, that's a good team, man. That is, I would love to see them have some success, man. I think that would be really great.
I would too.
I mean, I think it's bound to happen, man. I mean, it's looking pretty good, man. I was actually hyping them up today. So, well, hey, Joe.
I was listening to some of your sports show today. I was like, oh, this is really good. I like this.
Thanks, man.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm a big sports geek. I absolutely.
Welcome.
I'm watching my Sundays. No one can reach me at all.
I know, man. Oh yeah, that's been fun, man. That's me and my best friend. We finally, after all this time of doing the podcast, I finally got him commit. Nah,
Yeah.
he's actually been really good, and it's been
Good.
really fun. Just like you said with the people you talk to and record with, like it's just fun to have that. That history with somebody, and you get to just kind of let your guard down and be yourself and stuff like that. And that's always a good time. I think that's like the best way to do these. For everyone to get the most out of it. So, but man, look, anytime.
If you ever want me back, I'd love to be back on
Oh,
your show. And
just
at
about to
some
say
point, we'll probably get you on our show
Oh,
to
that'd be
do
cool.
a movie. You can pick a movie, and you and I can battle it out.
Oh,
And
that would be
have a
amazing.
good time with that. And normally our rule with our show is that if you're a guest for the first time, we really don't count you great at first, but after about 2 or 3, you are now officially a host, and you can start to give your say on everything.
Oh man, that would be an amazing time, man. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you and everything that you do, man. I can't wait to talk again. Just to wrap things up here.
Right.
I hope you guys check the description of this episode, I guess is what I'm trying to say, of this episode for the links to Joe's podcast, Movie Planet Podcast. You can see that it's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere. So please check that out. Also, you can check out where you can listen to the wndrsoul podcast, the one that you're listening to right now. You can find that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and pretty much any other podcatcher. But yeah, we appreciate everyone tuning in and listening to this big episode. Can't wait to do it again. Just want to say thank you to everyone for supporting and listening. And until the next time, we will talk to you guys later.
wndrsoul.
wndrsoul.